in a single moment. Everything Alex knew about family shattered into pieces. What would you do if your ideal family image crumbled overnight? Alex soon realizes that confronting this truth will alter his identity forever. The light from the kitchen window lit up the darkened hallway, revealing Alex's mother's phone sprawled across the dining table. It had been a typical Tuesday evening, filled with the usual family chatter. But Alex's curiosity tugged at him as he caught sight of the screen lit up with a series of messages. He approached the table, the gentle hum of the evening surrounding him. As he leaned closer, a chilling flush spread through him. The messages were affectionate, overflowing with intimate details that pointed toward a hidden relationship. Heart racing, Alex's hand instinctively reached out, the weight of the phone inexplicably drawing him in. "This can't be true," he whispered to himself, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. Images of his family, hugs at the dinner table, shared movie nights, his mother's laughter echoing through the house, began to flicker in his mind, now marred with suspicion. Mom loves Dad. Denial swiftly took root, and his initial response was to dismiss the evidence before him. He sank into a nearby chair, his thoughts a tangled mess. How could he even consider this? Moments passed like hours, each breath laden with disbelief. The protective barrier of innocence he'd built around the family began to crack under the weight of reality. He began to wrestle with an entirely new labyrinth of questions: betrayal, loyalty, and the elusive concept of happiness. Is it betrayal if she's unhappy? His heart twisted at the dichotomy, each new thread revealing the fragility of the life he'd always thought secure. It felt like walking a tightrope, one slip threatening to send him plunging into the abyss of heartache. Among the messages, he stumbled across a picture of an unfamiliar man, an unknown face that seemed to mock him. For a moment, Alex felt a spark of anger igniting within. This man was a phantom, a shadow creeping into his perfect family portrait. A wave of nausea washed over him as he grappled with the brewing storm of emotions, a mix of fury, sadness, and heartbreak. The next day at school, the aftermath clung to him like a heavy coat. His friends noticed, especially Ellie. She had always had a knack for reading him, and today was no different. When she approached, concern knitting her brow, Alex struggled to mask his internal turmoil beneath a forced smile. "Hey, you've been really quiet." "Everything okay?" Ellie asked, tilting her head slightly, her bright eyes searching for a glimpse of the Alex she knew. "Yeah, just tired, I guess," he replied, the words feeling hollow. He couldn't bring himself to open up, afraid that the moment he did, everything would spill out, unraveling the frayed edges of his composure. As the day dragged on, a gnawing urgency gripped him. He had to confront his mother, strip away the layers of denial, and face the truth head on. But just as he mustered the courage to approach the subject, he caught movement from the corner of his eye, the light from his mother's phone, flashing inconspicuously on the table once again. Gritting his teeth, he felt the strange pull of temptation as he snatched the phone. The screen illuminated another message that sent a chill down his spine, causing the world around him to blur. "Tonight at the same place. I can't wait." His heart raced, 1 minute in blissful ignorance, the next drowning in confusion. What does this new message reveal that Alex hadn't prepared for? The questions echoed in his mind as he felt the ground shift beneath him, time freezing in that profound moment of impending confrontation. The brave facade he tried to muster crumbled as he braced himself for what lay ahead, a world where the familiar was now a battleground of disillusionment. The house was silent, save for the soft creaking of the floorboards beneath Alex's hesitant steps. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing his dread as he approached his mother's room. The dim light spilled from under the door, casting a yellowish glow that seemed to mock his anxiety. He hoped for a moment of clarity, but he felt the burden of his discovery weigh heavily on him. How could he confront the woman he had always trusted? Taking a deep breath, he pushed the door open, feeling time stretch in that fragile space between the known and the unknown. Margaret looked up, her expression shifting from surprise to something calculated, as if she was struggling to regain her composure. "Alex," she said, forcing a bright smile, "what a surprise to see you here. Is everything okay?" "Mom," he blurted, unable to mask the tremor in his voice, "I found out. About you and, you know." The words hung suspended in the air, heavy with meaning. For a brief moment, shock flickered across her face before being quickly replaced by nervous laughter. "Oh, sweetheart, you can't believe everything you hear," she deflected, her laughter sounding hollow against the weight of his truth. Alex felt a surge of anger choke him, a hot flush creeping up his neck. "But I saw the messages, Mom. How can you laugh this off? This isn't just some misunderstanding." His fists clenched at his sides, the tears he'd tried to hold back threatening to spill. He wrestled with the tragic shift in their relationship, the warmth that used to envelop him when he thought of her now feeling like a cruel joke. Mom was supposed to be my anchor. How can she betray Dad? The thought churned in his mind, fueling his distress as Margaret's eyes darted away, avoiding his gaze. This wasn't the woman he had always looked up to. Margaret leaned back, her hand brushing the edge of the desk with an air of dismissiveness. "You don't understand, Alex. Everyone has their own struggles. This is about personal happiness." Her voice trailed off, twisting the words into something almost unrecognizable, as though she were trying to convince herself as much as him. Frustration coiled tightly in Alex's gut. "Personal happiness?" he echoed, incredulity seeping into his tone. "What about Dad? What about us? Does anyone even care about our family anymore?" Each question felt like a hollow echo, reverberating through their once strong connection. The confrontation dragged out the unspoken fears lying in the shadows of their half-hearted discussions. What would happen to them, to their family? More than just confusion flooded through him. It was despair, an aching realization that perhaps the foundations of trust he had relied on were crumbling. How could he face the world knowing this truth, knowing that the anchor he had always reached for when storms battered his heart might not be there when he needed her the most? Suddenly, his mother's phone buzzed, the sound slicing through the tension like a knife. Margaret glanced down, a flicker of apprehension darting across her face. "Just a message," she said dismissively, yet something in her tone raised alarm bells in Alex's mind. The device lay open on the desk, and for just a moment, Alex caught a glimpse of the screen, an unfamiliar name, but one he recognized. It sent a shiver down his spine, a sense of foreboding latching onto his thoughts. Who is it really? He wondered, dread pooling in his stomach. He felt the heat of the moment intensify, the confrontation shifting in ways he hadn't been prepared for. The uncharted territory of betrayal had opened before him, leading to questions he had never thought he would need to ask. Would this discovery, the name, the affair, change everything he thought he knew about family and loyalty? The uncertainty hung in the air like a thick mist, leaving him clutching desperately to his last vestiges of hope. As dawn broke, painting the sky in pastel colors, Alex sat on the edge of his bed, haunted by the remnants of a sleepless night. The weight of betrayal crushed him, squeezing out every ounce of optimism he had once gained from his family. Today was different. Today, the pieces he thought he understood about love and loyalty felt like shattered glass, sharp, and dangerous. He needed someone to talk to. In the comforting dimness of a nearby cafe, he found Ellie. The moment she looked up from her drink, her warm gaze met his with an understanding that transcended words. She gestured to the empty chair across from her, a silent invitation filled with empathy. "What's going on, Alex?" Ellie asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper, but laced with concern. "It's just everything's falling apart," he admitted, his voice trembling. "It's like my whole life has been a lie." Fresh tears brimmed his eyes, threatening to spill as he struggled to contain his turmoil. The memories of laughter and shared moments with his parents felt tainted by the discovery he had made. Ellie leaned in closer, her expression earnest. "You're feeling trapped, right? Between what you thought was true and this new reality?" "Yeah," he replied, looking away as if he could physically escape the confrontation raging within him. "Loyalty to my family versus betrayal. How do I even choose?" As he spoke, Ellie shared her own story, a tale of familial rifts born out of misunderstanding. "When my parents split, I felt it too. It blurred everything I believed about love. But sometimes knowing the truth hurts less than living with a lie," she said, her voice steady as if she had come to terms with her own pain. Her words settled like a balm over the raw wounds in Alex's heart. In her honesty, he found a flicker of solace, a reminder that he wasn't alone in wrestling with the fallout of adult relationships. "I guess we all deal with something, don't we?" he murmured, savoring the release of it all in their quiet corner of the world. "Absolutely," she replied, a hint of sorrow creeping into her eyes. "But you need to process this in your own time. You're not just surviving. You're trying to find out who you really are in the midst of it all." Just then, his phone vibrated on the table, pulling him back to the present. The moment felt heavy, charged with emotions waiting to spill over. He caught Ellie's gaze again, the worry lines deepening on her face as silence stretched between them. Suddenly, a familiar face appeared at the cafe's entrance. The blast of cold air announced the arrival of David, Alex's father, unexpectedly back from his trip. A knot twisted violently in Alex's stomach, the forlorn realization hitting him hard. He wasn't ready for this confrontation, not when everything was so fragile and undefined. "Alex!" David called, his tone demanding attention. Alex's blood ran cold, his heart threatening to seize. The chaotic whirlwind of emotions threatened to upend the slim sense of stability he'd found during his moment of reprieve with Ellie. He could feel the impending confrontation looming like a storm, dark and inevitable. He looked at Ellie, whose reassuring smile faded into concern, and his breath caught in his throat. "I have to go," he whispered, panic seeping through his voice. "But Alex—" Ellie reached out, but he was already standing, making his way towards the door. "I'll talk to you later," he said, desperation lacing his words. The weight of what was to come sat heavily on his chest as he stepped outside, bracing himself to face the unfathomable chaos waiting within the confines of family ties. But deep down, he feared that this confrontation could lead to an unraveling he wasn't prepared to handle. The air crackled with tension as Alex stood facing David in the dim kitchen, illuminated only by the soft glow of the overhead light. Each second felt like an eternity, the weight of unspoken words pressing down on them. The moment was charged. Alex could feel his heart pounding in his chest, preparing for the confrontation that had been building in him for days. "Dad, we need to talk. It's about Mom," Alex began, barely able to keep his voice steady. The words hung in the air, each syllable heavy with unvoiced worry. David's expression hardened, his defensiveness a shield against the rawness of the situation. "What are you talking about?" he said, his tone clipped. Don't bring this into my house, Alex." A wave of frustration washed over Alex, igniting the anger he'd been trying to contain. "How can you not know? Does it not bother you that she's been living a double life?" His words felt like daggers as they cut through the thin veneer of their family's happiness, revealing the cracks below. For a moment, silence enveloped them. David's stoic demeanor seemed to reinforce the betrayal Alex felt, both toward his mother and now, disturbingly, toward his father. With every heartbeat, the realization deepened. The man he had once idolized faltered under scrutiny. "Alex, you don't know what you're talking about," David shot back, his voice laced with a mix of anger and fear. "Margaret is just going through a phase. We all have our struggles." "Struggles!" Alex spat, disbelief washing over him. "Is that what we're calling this? Does it matter at all that she's seen someone else?" The words flowed, desperate for understanding, desperate to expose the truth behind the family's fabrications. With each exchange, Alex felt the heartbreak of years of marital strain unraveling, revealing the troubling reality hidden beneath their surface normalcy. Memories crashed over him like a tide. The moments where David had turned a blind eye to Margaret's growing distance, the way dinner conversations had turned into awkward exchanges filled with silence. Did his father not see? Could he really remain blind to their collective misery? David's face clouded over with frustration and shame. "You're being a child about this, Alex. You've no idea what goes on between two people in a marriage. It's complicated." His voice grew softer, but the stridency remained. "It's complicated because you made it that way. You've always avoided talking about what matters, about her feelings, about our family." Alex's heart raced with every revelation, each word unearthing the layers of unacknowledged issues that lay buried beneath parental expectations. Flashes of memories overtook him, the quiet dinners, the missed family outings, his mother's lingering sadness. Each memory was a thread weaving the narrative of neglect, a stark reminder of a family chained by silence. As they stared at each other, a world of disappointment surged between them, the painful truth of family loyalty clashing violently with personal integrity. What does it mean to stand up for truth when family is involved? Alex wondered, his heart heavy with the weight of that question. Suddenly, something buzzed, breaking through the emotional whirlwind. Alex's eyes flicked to the kitchen counter where, surprisingly, Margaret's phone lit up with a flurry of notifications. He hesitated, caught between the urge to comfort and the instinct to break free from this toxic atmosphere. Pushing that thought aside, he stormed out, the turmoil of emotions colliding violently within him. But as he left, the phone continued to buzz, its persistent chimes reminiscent of the chaos swirling in his heart, a chaotic whisper of secrets yet to be revealed. Sometimes, he thought, bitterness boiling beneath his skin, the weight of silence speaks volumes. Yet the nagging feeling that his fight for truth might lead to more chaos than he ever imagined hung in the air. It was a reminder that this journey had only just begun. The phone felt heavier in Alex's hand than it ever had before. The glow of the screen beckoned him, igniting a blend of anger and desperation that left him breathless. With a trembling finger, he opened the messaging app, a part of him hoping against hope this would somehow lead to an explanation, something that could ease the turmoil roiling within. What he uncovered, however, wreaked havoc on his heart. Each message seemed to slice through him like a serrated blade. "You make me feel alive," one read, while another whispered, "I can't wait to see you again." He felt as if he were reading a secret script of betrayal, the words taunting him, a mirror reflecting a family's fractured reality. Why couldn't she just talk to us? He thought, anger boiling over. Why lead a double life? The questions echoed like a relentless drum, amplifying the confusion swirling in his mind. The emotions cascaded within him, spiraling from despair to outrage. Wasn't he worth the truth? Didn't they all deserve better than this hidden existence? As he delved deeper, it became painfully clear that these messages were not just words. They were the shadows of his mother's unexpressed feelings and desires. Each phrase pulled back the curtain, revealing a woman who had felt trapped beneath the weight of motherhood. A woman who had sacrificed so much, yet still felt unvalued. This was not just about infidelity, it was about loss. Loss of self. Loss of connection. He couldn't shake the unease gripping his chest as he decided to confide in Ellie. They sat together on the edge of his bed, the dim light casting long shadows between them. "You won't believe this," he said, his voice raw with vulnerability. "I found messages on Mom's phone. She loves someone else." Ellie's eyes widened, disbelief mingling with sympathy. "Alex, she began, but he interrupted, his words tumbling out in a rush. "It's not just cheating. It's like she's been living two lives. How can she do this? How could she betray us?" Ellie shifted closer, her expression softening. "Maybe she's hurting too. Maybe she's lost in all of this. Just like you." His stomach twisted. The thought both repulsed and intrigued him. "It doesn't excuse it, Ellie. She should have talked to us." "But what if she couldn't?" Ellie pressed gently. "What if she felt she had no one to turn to? Think about it. She's been overwhelmed, trying to be everything." Alex wanted to shake his head, to deny that a shred of empathy could creep into his thoughts amidst the tempest of betrayal. Yet, a flicker of understanding sparked in the depths of his heart, an emotional peak weighing down on him. "Betrayal often leads us to parts of ourselves we never wanted to face," he murmured, the realization dawning heavy and profound. Just as he pondered how this would all change him, his phone buzzed, pulling him back to the stark reality. He gasped, staring at the last message that popped up with haunting clarity. "I can't wait to see you at the park this weekend." His breath caught in his throat, the familiar location blurring the lines between childhood innocence and betrayal. They had shared so many moments there, each memory now tainted by a painful truth. "What he finds next will change everything he thought he knew about love," he whispered, the weight of the revelation settling deep within. The world felt darker, distorted by the shadows of impending confrontation, and with each passing second, the disarray only deepened. The park, where laughter once thrived, was now a battleground for a future he could barely comprehend, anticipation and dread colliding fiercely within him. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a brilliant orange glow over the park, a place once filled with joy and laughter. Now, it felt like a stage set for a tragic play, where the characters were trapped in a script they never chose. Alex's heart raced as he approached his mother, Margaret, his earlier resolve mingling with doubt and fear. Could he really confront her here, among the remnants of happier times? The air thickened with unspoken words, heavy and tangible. As he stood face to face with her, a spark ignited in his chest. "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you have to lie?" His voice trembled, driven by waves of anger and betrayal that he could no longer contain. Margaret's gaze dropped to the ground, but tears began to glisten in her eyes. It was then that Alex noticed the vulnerability behind her facade. "You think you know everything, but you don't. I've sacrificed myself for this family," she cried, her voice trembling with anguish. The force of her words hit him like a punch to the gut. "I thought we were a team," Alex said, desperation creeping into his tone. "You've spilled all these secrets and left us hanging." "Secrets?" she echoed, widening her eyes, hurt evident in every crevice of her expression. What do you think it feels like to carry that weight alone? I was trapped, Alex. Losing myself in being your mother left me feeling invisible, unvalued. Her admission hung in the air, and Alex felt a swell of understanding, laced with pain. Staring into his mother's tear-streaked face, he saw the reality that had eluded him for so long. "You don't know how much I wanted to just grow up and make you proud," he said softly, the fight dissolving. "But every time I looked at you, I thought you had it all together." He had stepped onto a battleground, yet here they were. A mother fighting for her own identity, and a son wrestling with loyalty in the face of harsh truths. Everything was blurred. His anger, her sorrow. "I had to protect you from my mistakes. I thought shielding you was the best way." "But in hiding this, you hurt me even more," he retorted, emotionally wrought. "How can you expect me to trust you now?" The air crackled with tension as silence enveloped them, a chasm widened by misunderstandings and fears. In the depth of their confrontation lay the echoes of what they could have been, a united front against the world's disappointments instead of adversaries unveiling each other's wounds. As emotions simmered dangerously close to boiling over, Margaret stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I'm more than just your mother." Her words hung like a breath between them, charged with unresolved feelings and potential release. In that instant, Alex's heart raced again, this time from the realization of a deeper connection, a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. Would he have the strength to embrace both her humanity and his own fears? Or would the tides of resentment pull them apart? Alex walked away from the confrontation, the weight of Margaret's silence wrapping around him like a suffocating fog. Each step felt heavy, burdened by a chaotic mix of anger and compassion. How could she have betrayed him like this? Yet, buried beneath the surface, a flicker of understanding began to emerge. Could he really fault her for seeking love in places he couldn't understand? Finding refuge at Ellie's house, he slumped onto her couch, the familiar comfort tinged with the jagged edges of his turmoil. Ellie turned to him, her brow furrowed with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What happened?" It's Mom." His voice cracked as the gravity of his feelings overwhelmed him. "I never imagined she could do something like this, but I also can't shake this feeling of, I don't know, sympathy? She's still my mom." "Have you thought about talking to someone?" Ellie suggested, her tone gentle but firm. "This isn't just about what she did. There's so much bottled up in you right now." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration boiling just below the surface. "Therapy? Really?" "I should just tough this out. I should be stronger than this." "Strength isn't about ignoring your feelings, Alex. It's about confronting them," she said, her gaze steady and unwavering. "You're not letting yourself process what's happened. There's a difference between loyalty and blind devotion. You deserve to explore how all this affects you." As Alex sat there, stunned by her words, flashes of their family life danced behind his eyes. He remembered laughter shared around the dinner table, summer vacations where nothing felt strained, moments where love seemed like an infinite well. But now, those memories clashed violently with the present, a stark juxtaposition to the disarray surrounding them. With every memory came a reminder of how fractured their family had become. How could loyalty exist in a web of betrayal? And yet, a quiet voice inside him urged for reflection, to look deeper into the hearts of those he loved. Maybe she felt trapped, he thought. Maybe she was trying to grasp onto something real. The realization washed over him like a tide, both refreshing and terrifying. Growth wouldn't come from shying away. It would demand he confront the heart of love, with all its complexities and messiness. But how would he even begin to approach her again? In the weeks that followed, Alex found himself lost in thought, attempting to untangle the knots of his emotions. Hurdles of doubt persisted, yet fleeting moments of clarity illuminated his mind. A new introspection began to take shape, one that pushed him closer to understanding love's multifaceted nature. Then, everything shifted, with one surprising notification on his phone. His moment of focus broke as he glanced at the screen. It was a message from his mother, a simple invitation. "Alex, I would love for you to join me for a reading of my poetry tonight. I have some things to share." His heart raced. What could she possibly have to say after everything that transpired? The tension tightened around him. Would he find the strength to face both his mother and his own fears? Healing isn't just about forgiveness. It's about understanding our own wounds first. The path ahead felt unclear, but one thing was certain. This moment held the potential for revelations that could change everything. Would he embrace that chance for clarity? Or would the fear of vulnerability keep him at arm's length? In the rawness of Margaret's words, Alex felt the weight of her vulnerability settle between them. She was more than just his mother. She was a woman carrying deep-seated pain and regret, unraveling in front of him. Each confession chipped away at the fortress he had built around his heart. It was a strange blend of anger and empathy. A realization began to dawn on him that this moment, much like the unfortunate truths that had surfaced, was rooted in the strength of authenticity. Despite the turmoil of betrayal, he recognized that there was extraordinary power in expressing her true self. As Margaret spoke, he could almost see the burden she carried, a heavier load than he had ever understood. Margaret's gaze, usually bold and unyielding, now reflected a vulnerability he had once thought impossible. "Alex, I never intended for you to find out this way," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "I made mistakes. I thought I was protecting you." "Protecting me?" he echoed, the disbelief clear in his tone. "How could you think keeping that from me was protection? You shattered everything I thought I knew about you. About us." Her eyes shimmered with tears. "I thought I could fix it. But mistakes, they don't always come with a guide on how to repair the damage." Alex's heart softened as he listened to her struggle between regret and the hope for redemption. It struck him then, sometimes, the path to healing starts with simply being heard. He felt a new sense of responsibility bubbling within him. The realization swept through him that perhaps they could create a space for open conversations in their lives moving forward, even about the hardest truths. "But how do we move past this?" he asked quietly, his voice barely a whisper. Margaret took a deep breath, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "We start by talking. Not just about the hurt, but about everything, the good, the bad, the rawness of our lives. Can we really forgive when we see our loved ones in their most vulnerable moments?" he pondered aloud. Would this revelation alter the fabric of their relationship? A deep ache settled in his chest, a testament to all he had learned in a mere moment. What might it mean for both of them if they chose to embrace each other's flaws openly? As the silence stretched between them, he couldn't shake the feeling that every family has unspoken stories, hidden chapters lying in wait, reminiscent of their own experiences. "What hidden chapters await to be revealed in our lives, Mom?" he asked, his curiosity igniting. Were they ready to uncover those truths together? Margaret smiled through her tears, a gesture that spoke volumes. "We'll find them. We've already started." As they moved together toward a new understanding, Alex felt a wave of belonging and commitment wash over him. He turned to the camera, a newfound resolve shining in his eyes. If you connected with my journey and want more stories that challenge your perceptions, hit that like button and subscribe. Join our community as we dive deeper into the complexities of life and love. He exhaled, letting the emotions of the moment wash over him one last time. Thank you for being part of this journey. Together, let's continue exploring the beautiful mess of relationships. Until next time, keep your hearts open. He smiled, warmth radiating from his words, hoping to inspire everyone watching to embrace their own messy truths.